I had 10 of these cookies for breakfast. And let's not forget a whole large pizza last night for dinner. So what this means is,
I'm going to the gym.
so here we are. It's me, Gazbot, day 5 of the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, and it's about 6 o'clock here. I'm going to make dinner after I make this video, and then I'll do the editing and post it up later. I did work today, not as much as I'd like, which is something I seem to say a lot. I guess I just want to work more. But I did 2 hours, which, again, is way over the 30 minimum, but I'm holding myself to a higher standard since I have more free time. And first thing I did was write. I spent a half hour or so scripting out 2 more pages from the sort of bullet-pointed outline. So I scripted 2 pages, and then I did a character design. I did 2 character designs total. The first one I decided not to show you guys because I feel like it might be a spoiler for the story a little bit, possibly. And then the second one I can show you. It's a monster character. It might not be the final design, but it's the one I have right now. This is the first time I've drawn this monster, so I'm going to go ahead and put that up now as sort of a speed process thing, and I'll talk about it as I go.
Okay, so this is me just trying to sketch a few ideas. I didn't like the first one. Then I did this guy's head and shrunk it down, put it on a body. Kind of dug it, thought it maybe he has a little energy blast, but that wasn't right for the idea I was going for. Did another one, more tentacles and like of a bigger monster. Too big, not digging it. This was a back view, similar concept, but not quite what I'm looking for. Decided to start all over using those ideas, give him a nice wide body, some big claw grip hands, tentacles, sort of maybe planty, doing the head a few different times, sort of incorporating that first monster head I drew, or second. Start doing the arm here, and the head, not digging it. Scratch that whole thing. Starting all over. Kind of building off the one I just did, but redoing it. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I did, is said, oh, that was pretty good, let me just redraw that. And here you can see I'm just refining details, and I keep having to shrink what I'm doing because I keep running off the page. I ended up liking this one, and then I go in and do this weird little skeleton thing, which is really just sort of redrawing it again simply like that, and then went in to do a more detailed version of this version of the monster, which I like. I often start with the head. As I've said before, I feel like heads and faces are some of the most important things. And then I put that on a separate layer so I can move around and resize it. And then I have these sort of claw hands on weird sort of spindle arms with big hands. And as I was going, I realized I want him to kind of be a sea-based monster, probably because it had these tentacles. But I tried to make the tentacles look different, kind of make them look weirdly segmented. Put the body in here, sort of like a shell, like a lobster tail or something like that. And you can't really tell, but in his torso, upper torso, those are like indications that there'll be scales. I put little tubes coming out of his head and stuff for, like, you know, air or tentacles. And there I am again, making it look more like a shell, just throwing a few more details. Another tentacle. There's also a few suction cups on his head. I don't know if you could tell. When I go into the legs, I end up putting more suction cups on, again, to reinforce that sort of sea life theme, which I didn't know I was going to do going into it. That's something I just sort of came to as I was going. I just needed a cool looking monster. Yeah, and those suction cups probably don't even make sense if it was like an actual sea creature, but I thought they looked cool. And then I had started off giving him a tail, and then I turned the tail into like a bisected tail, which is sort of 2 tentacle things that end in big claws, almost like a what we call a pincher bug on the East Coast. I don't know what you call them elsewhere, but it kind of looks like its butt has scissors coming out of it. So then I put all that together. I had to clean up the hands because I drew over them when I was doing the legs. Put in that green background just to sort of show where the monster, like the gaps are. Wasn't loving the face. It wasn't quite fitting in with what I had done, so I started changing it a little bit. Then I wanted to throw some tentacles in, and then about halfway through I decided to just scrap the original one completely and redo almost everything, although it's still the same bait. Yeah, that's when I gave up. Did the mouth. I tried to make the bottom lip look a little bit more sea life, because now I know I'm doing sea life, so I gave him kind of weird drippy, finny looking things. Extra rows of teeth like a shark might have. I ended up putting even more in his mouth, almost like a sarlacc pit. Tentacles on his face, looking a lot more like he matches the rest of his body. Some glowing eyes. Throw it on top there. Now what I'm doing here is adding a background of green, then I turn it white so that it'll cover up whatever I put in the body on that layer. For a minute, I thought I might give him 3 heads. Changed my mind on that. Then I just put in some shading, and I think I was pretty happy with this. I don't know if it's going to be the final monster, but it's sort of final for now.
Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm always torn whether or not to show it more real time or closer to real time and talk as I'm drawing about why I'm doing everything I'm doing. But I feel like that's more of a process video, which I've done before and I'd probably do again. But for the 100 days of making comics, I don't think that's really appropriate, because I want to keep these sort of short, and it's more about the progress I'm making on the project as opposed to how I do certain things. But you can check out other videos for that if you're interested in such things. The other thing is, I wanted to talk a little bit about writing. I'm not a great writer in terms of, I mean, I feel like I have good ideas, I'm confident in my characters, and like I like what I write, so in that case, I'm not putting myself down. But I don't have a lot of experience writing. You know, I've taken a couple writing classes in college, and I've written a few things here and there, but I draw all the time. I don't write all the time. And I've never written anything this big and long. And but what I find is, while it was daunting, it took me a really long time to just, beyond coming up with the rough concept of like just sitting down and writing an outline even, took me forever. I'd spend a few minutes on it and then not look at it again for a week. And but now that I'm into it, I found that it's sort of, in some ways, the opposite of drawing, in that it was really hard for me to get started and to refine it and to add to it to get to the point where it's a cohesive, like, rough outline. But now when I go in, it's almost, well, it's not easy. I mean, I still find it a little bit difficult. I mean, it took me an hour to write 2 pages of script from something that I already had the events down, or half hour. But there's a structure there, and I know what I'm doing. And sorry, someone came in the door. But what I was trying to say is that now that I've gotten a certain amount of writing done, the editing, the rewriting, the adding to, the subtracting is way easier than starting from scratch. And I'm sure writers know this, or maybe not. Maybe this is just my weirdness. But like, it's more like sculpting or whatever. You know, when I'm drawing, the easy part to me is the quick sketch, the concept stuff. I'll just do a bunch of scribbles and layouts and whatever, and then I'm like, okay, let me refine it. Oh, now I have to worry about the anatomy, and that pose might not work, and I'm losing some of it, and oh, I better do reference for that car, and is the perspective right? And it gets harder and harder and harder the closer I get to a finished piece. And I feel like the opposite is true with writing, is what I'm trying to say, that as I get closer to the finished script, it gets easier and easier to just refine. And, you know, I'm also, because I don't have to draw things, I'm less precious about taking stuff out. If it's like, oh, I wrote this, 4 sentences and now it doesn't work, I could just take it out, because it didn't take me that long to write it. Whereas if I had drawn a whole panel and I have to take it out, I'd be like, oh man, I spent like an hour and a half on that. So my cat is scratching on the door. So yeah, so that's kind of been my mini revelation about writing, is that once you get to a certain point, it starts getting easier. So I guess that's it for today. I will talk to you guys tomorrow, because if this is day 5, I guess that means that I've got
95 days left.